I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and I'm going to be your host this evening. My partner, the bobble-headed one, is going through some stuff. Talked about it a little bit yesterday, so Mark is not going to be here. I'll be doing this old school, so give me one moment whilst I pull this up. There I am. See if I can get the volume down. How about that? I actually did it right. And since we're doing this old school, you know the drill. The rules go like this. Number one, we're not going to discuss politics. We don't do it. Plenty of places you can go discuss politics. In fact, it's all anyone wants to talk about, so you shouldn't have any problem finding a place to talk about politics. We do not compare our religion to other people's religions. It's okay to say, God bless you. It's okay to say, you know what, God gets me through this, or I lean on God, or anything like that. What we don't do is, my God's better than your God, and here's why you're not going to heaven. None of that stuff flies. Leisure Bees, good to see you. No foul language, people. We'd like to believe that we can do a little bit better than that when we're in the comments section. So, any kind of dirty mouth stuff can get you kicked out of here. And we don't do the mean people thing. And if you're brand new here, you know, we're always a little bit dicey anyway, a little bit worried about it, because in the past we have had people that have gone out of their way to be cruel. So people who invent an account the same day that they come and visit us make us a little nervous, because normally it takes a minute to find the lifeboat. You know, we're not YouTube's number one draw, so to speak. So it's, it's just one of those things that we're going to go out of our way to protect the people on the boat. Okay? So, let's be nice to one another. People, today's subject matter, Mr. Hunt, good to see you. Seventh Son, glad that you're here. Should we do a roll call and see who else we've got? I Am the Noise Opera, good to see you, my brother. Greta, the other one, good to see you. Miss V, Stacy Michaels, Seventh Son, you could set all of your watches by the Seventh Son. Glad that you're here, brother. Today we're going to be talking about suffering. It's not a fun subject necessarily, but it is an important one. Cemetery 76, Elisa's Beauty and Gaming Channel. Good to see you. I'm glad that you're here. Suffering is a tough subject. It really is. It's a tough one. Jacob Forrester, I'm glad you're here. It's a tough subject, but it's one that we absolutely have to deal with, right? There's no way of getting through the whole walk of sobriety without dealing with suffering. And let's be really honest, this is sort of a monumental time in history when it comes to suffering. The 14 days, right, or 15 days that they were going to lock this country down so that they could get this thing under control has turned into about 2 years. And it's been very difficult on people. It really has. People, the statistics are nothing shy of depressing if you let them, sort of work on you. But, the reports of people who have said that they're suffering from mental health issues is quadrupled during this pandemic. Quadrupled. That's a 400% increase. Jesse Brown, good to see you, bud. That is a 400% increase. Andrea, I'm glad that you're here. 400%. That's great if it's stock. If it's mental health, that's not such a good thing. Clay, good to see you, bud. Be smart and safe, everyone. There is no reason why this guy should need any info about you. Clay was funny because Clay was here yesterday. He created his account the day before, and Clay's name isn't Clay. We know who Clay is. But Clay, you know what, bud? I hope that you find something to do with your time. I really do. He said, people, in case you were missing, don't give any information to a bank robber. I have been quite open with my criminal past. The bank robbery thing is probably not the the one that really ought to get you. I've done a lot of other terrible things, but that one probably is the one that gets the most ink. Because let's face it, bank robbery is kind of, I don't know, in the criminal world, it's kind of impressive, I guess. It certainly gets a lot of ink. But yeah, at the end of yesterday's live feed, the reason Clay came strong and started out is because Clay knew that he wasn't going to be around very long, so he thought he'd take a shot early on. Thank you, Wrenches. Got the best blue crew in the entire YouTube arena. You guys really are the tops. So quadrupled. The people that reported mental health illness has quadrupled during this pandemic. And I don't know that should come as a shock to anybody. This one, though, kind of got my attention. Alcoholism. And you have to keep in mind that when you read a statistic about alcoholism, you've got to realize that most people deny the fact that they have a problem with either alcohol or drugs. So when people report that that the incidence of alcoholism is up, you got to realize that the numbers are probably not super accurate. The percentage of alcohol sales is through the roof. And I tried to get us a solid number on it, but I read so many different statistics that there's no way to sort of put any kind of, there's no credence to any of it because there are so many different statistics on this. But instances of alcoholism, people who are reporting an addiction to alcohol is up 35% in our country. 35%. Along with that comes a lot of other stuff that is just not very good, right? You've got domestic violence and child abuse is absolutely through the roof. You've got overdose deaths are at an all-time high. We've never seen anything like it, in the neighborhood of 300 people a day, each and every day, day in, day out. The murder rates, not across the country, but in all big cities, are through the roof. We've never seen it this ugly, or we have, but it's been a very long time. Early 80s, during the crack wars, it's the last time that we saw these kind of murder rates. We have our old nemesis, used to be called the USSR, now we call them Russia, right? Russia is poised at the border of Ukraine, getting ready to invade. If not, they're certainly putting a whole lot of troops there for no apparent reason. But all of these things going on in the world right now. Arizona Raven, so glad you're here. All of these things that are going on currently around the world can really put a person on edge. Flaming Jackson, good to see you, brother. Charlie Mullins, glad you're here. All of this can put somebody on edge, right? Absolutely, 100% put you on edge. And it's doing this worldwide. Obviously, it's a lot more evident to us here because we live in the United States. And, this is not unique to us, but just about everybody in the world. Wherever you live is your focus. It's what, you see on a day-to-day basis. So it's one of those things that, sort of draws you in, gets a hold of you. Did I just see... Hold on a second, people. Mike Hepner. My goodness. Mike, good to see you. I was just thinking about you today, oddly enough. I really was. Mike is a friend of mine that shares a love of all things horology. So I'm going to have to drop you an email. I got some pretty unusual pieces I wanted to talk to you about. But people, the suffering that is going on right now in the world is driving a lot of people into, the worst possible case scenarios. And it's what it's doing to addiction and what it's doing to people who are abusing drugs and alcohol. We've never seen anything like this in our lifetime. And more than likely, we're not going to again, at least with any hope. But a lot of times I think we kind of lose perspective. And most of the people who are here can start to realize that, among the normal people in the world, those individuals who, the losses to the virus are horrible, 850,000. But then there's 4 times as many suffering long, C plus math and other long-term impacts. I'm not sure there's a great resignation going on. You know, what it's doing to the mental health of the planet is really ugly. And we're seeing it day to day. You know, if you turn on the news, you're watching people do smash and grab robberies where 70 people run into a place and run out with their arms full of stuff. And it's just becoming, Miss Hermit Hill, Kentucky, glad you're here. It's really just becoming sort of epidemic proportions, right? We've never seen anything like this. And even the air quotes normal people are really going through it. But for those of us who are in recovery, when we get these kind of feelings that creep up on us, we usually fall back onto our old standby. And for most of us, our old standby is drugs and alcohol. And, you know, when you prepare for a talk on suffering, first of all, it's not, let's be honest. I mean, I do some talks that are fun. This isn't one of them. But it is sort of essential because it's affecting everybody on the boat and it's affecting everybody in the world. You know, I said hello to my friend Mike. He's on the other side of the pond. You know, he's on the other side of the world. But everywhere you are, you know, Niall is weighing in. We've got people from Australia, Alan Valentine and Fiona. No matter where you are in the world, this is affecting us. It's affecting everybody. We really are all in the same boat. But you start to try to, as always, and we talk about this, you know, almost every day here on the Lifeboat, but it's almost time to pump the brakes and put things in perspective, right? Honestly. I was reading about suffering and I was going through some of the things and, you know, they quantify this, believe it or not. You can quantify suffering. You can actually put a grade to suffering. The suffering that tends to get the highest grade is losing a child. When you do not outlive your children, that is the most, according to people in psychology and psychiatry, that is the top of the food chain when it comes to suffering. And I was reading an article that had been written by a gentleman that was talking about suffering. This gentleman had a daughter who worked for American Airlines. He had a son who was a firefighter. And his other son sort of broke out of the mold and he worked for Cantor, which was a company that sold stocks, bonds, things like that in the World Trade Center. And on the 11th of September, in 9/11, his daughter's plane flew into the South Tower, where it killed her brother, who happened to be working on the floor that the plane hit. And then his son rushed into that building to try to save lives and was in it when the tower collapsed on top of him. Can you imagine? Honestly, you want perspective? You want to take what we're going through and go, take a look at what 9/11 did to that man. Around the world, obviously in America, but around the world, people hurt when they watched the devastation of those two towers. It felt like our very way of life, you know, took a hit. And the suffering went on for months and months afterwards. But who suffered like this guy? Can you imagine losing, you had 3 children and you lose every single one of them in a couple of hours? As I said, you can quantify suffering and they say this is it, right? Losing a child is it. Losing 3 of them, all 3 of them in one tragedy, in all of the different ways that had to, all of the different things that had to line up in order for that to happen. The fact that this man is alive and had the ability to write about this is astounding. The fact that this man didn't take his own life, honestly. I mean, from a suffering standpoint, people, that's the top of the food chain. His perspective was beautiful. It really was. I'm not trying to play down. DJ Daddy-O, Mr. T, good to see you. I'm not trying to play down what we go through, people, because we go through it. You know, all of us are dealing with some very heavy stuff. And I do, honestly. People, as far as it goes, I'm not tooting my own horn here or anything else, but you have to realize that anybody on the boat that's going through it usually reaches out and tells me about it. The number of people who have reached out to me in the last 3 days to tell me that they are really in an awful place. It's sad. It really is. It's sad. But I spend a great deal of time trying to put things in perspective for all of these people. The story I just told is awful. I can't think of a worse story. I really can't. I mean, as far as it goes, that's really as bad as it gets. And things like that, I've used this many times. My dad was fairly famous for saying it, the old expression that I cried because I had no shoes until I saw a man who had no feet. So oftentimes, we get so focused on ourselves and so focused on the things that are going on in our life that we do it to the exclusion of all of the suffering that is going on in the world, right? Really heavy duty, ugly stuff that makes what we're going through seem trivial. But the reason that we're hurting people, the reason that this is as ugly as it is, getting ready to check into my bed. The reason that this is, Brittany, so good to see you. Love it when Brittany stops by. The reason that this is so difficult, the reason that everything going on in this pandemic has been so hard on us, as I've said before, I am of the firm belief that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, right? The opposite of addiction is what? The opposite of addiction is connection. We go out of our way. I've missed you all. How is everyone? You know what? We're hanging in there, Brittany. The connection is the opposite of addiction. We've talked about this many times. An addict is alone. That is the defining characteristic of addiction. You are alone in your suffering. It's you and the drug. It doesn't matter if you're in a room full of people. It doesn't matter if your significant other is a drug addict. Drug addiction causes you to be alone in your struggle, in your suffering, in your strife, all of those things. You're alone. There's nobody that's walking that walk with you. And the more isolated that you get in your addiction, the more difficult it is to quit. This is the reason that group therapy is the gold standard for trying to get anybody out of any kind of trauma, whether that trauma be, drug addiction and alcoholism or anything else. Always bring people together who are in the same boat and allow them to bounce stories and ideas off of one another, and healing begins to happen. Well, one of the things that has been really ugly with this whole pandemic is that we have been forced into isolation. We have been forced into not spending any time with one another. Hold on one second. Yeah, Leisure Bee says, noise opera, not such a bad thing. What you do with raccoons brings you joy and happiness, and animal goodwill. You know something? The bond between human and animal, everybody's got a story about just how incredible that is. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that people understand, because there are people that get it and there are people who quite simply don't. It doesn't really matter one way or the other, but the studies have been done. People with animals, with pets, tend to live longer. There's a level of happiness. I have a cat in a basket, right? Squirrel nut hangs out here. Every time I am on YouTube doing a live feed, this cat is right here. This cat follows me every single place that I go, and the amount of joy that I get from this animal is astounding. But that's a connection. Make no mistake about it. That is a connection. And this pandemic has stolen the connection that we get with humans. Really. I mean, they've forced us into isolation. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole that I could spend the next 40 minutes talking about. But the damage that's going on right now, we're not going to have a clue how much damage is done for generations. For generations. 1 and 2-year-olds who the most important thing in the world is the looking at people's faces. It's how all of the development begins to happen, is they look at faces of other people. We've never had a time in history where 1 and 2-year-olds are staring at people with masks on. This is really going to do things that we don't have a clue about. But for those of us on the grown-up section of this, we have to strive. We have to go massively out of our way to ensure that we're working on connection. We have to go out of our way to make sure that we are doing everything we can to bring people into our sphere, people into our circle. If you don't, I promise you, you're going to be in deep trouble. Plain and simple. You're going to be in deep trouble. Don't allow all of the things. That's funny, squirrel sleeps during your live feeds, because this is the time of day my kitties are more active. Squirrel is special. I think she likes her dad's soothing voice. You know, it's funny that you say that, because Squirrel will run around this office and tear things up until I start, and then she jumps up here and goes to sleep. So maybe I'm boring her as much as I'm boring everybody else. I don't know. Maybe the voice knocks her out, but her active time is at about midnight. I've told you that I have taught this cat to fetch. She brings all of the little toys that she fetches to bed. So I'll be laying there sound asleep, and I'll wake up and there'll be 5 of her little fetching toys dropped right at my face, and she'll be pawing at me like, playtime. But this is a connection, and it's one that has done really incredible things in my life. Really, really incredible things to help keep me calm, right? To help keep my head in the game. But without what I'm doing right here, I wholeheartedly believe this, folks. I'm not saying this for anybody's benefit. I really am not. I believe, and my partner believes the same, that without coming here every single day and doing this, I more than likely would have relapsed. Honestly, this is the isolation that they created during the last 2 years was so difficult on me. It really was. And I was leaving prison, obviously, right? So in prison, even through the isolation, because we were locked down 23 hours a day, and we would get out for 1 hour. And that was to make your phone call, to take a shower. You had to be masked up to do it. And we had a group of people that would meet for 45 minutes, just like we're doing here on the boat. And you know what? We lived for it. For those of us that were really trying to get sober, that 45 minutes was the most important thing in the world. And every once in a while, because of staff shortages or people in the staff that got sick, they would... Thank you, Brittany. That means a lot to me. I swear to you it does. Thank you so much. When there were staff shortages, they would lock us down, and we wouldn't have the ability to get together or do whatever. Guys would freak out. I mean, people would destroy their cells and flood the floor and do all kinds of crazy things because it really became so important. And even though now we're on sort of a step down, I mean, all of us are getting out and doing things. It's not like it was a year ago at this time, but nevertheless, we are still in a form of isolation. I mean, even if all you're looking at is the fact that from here down, if I did this and I came here every single day and I did this thing like this, it would be a very different kind of an effect. There is so much that goes on in the interaction between people. Everything that they're doing is making our life more difficult. And if we're going to maintain our sobriety through this, we're going to do it through connection. It is the answer not just to addiction, but it's also the answer to suffering. It really is. If you're suffering and you're doing it alone, you may as well go get your bottle. Seriously, call the dope man. Because if you suffer through the things that are going on in your life and you try to do it alone, it is a recipe for relapse. You understand? It's a recipe for relapse. The beautiful thing about what we do here on the boat is we've knocked the edge. Hold on. I kind of self-isolate on purpose. Being homeless, close to 5 years, messed with my head. You know what, Jesse? There is nothing wrong with being alone. I'm not don't misunderstand anything that I'm saying here. There is a place for being alone. There is a time and a place for all of that. And for some people, the more time that they spend away from people, the better. But you have to have an outlet where you connect. And you do. I mean, I know you. I know everything that goes on. You know what I mean? At least as it pertains to the boat. And, you're the donut dude. And everybody here gets excited when you show up. And there's a lot of connection between you and everyone else on the crew, and that's essential. What we've done here is to knock the edge off of the group setting. To get up to do what I do, most people would not want to do this. Most people would not want to sit in front of a camera and talk for an hour. Most people hate that as a concept. In fact, most people would cringe at that as a concept. But coming here and having the ability to interact without the screen, right? The reason that most people don't get a lot out of AA or NA, and I don't mean everybody, because there are people that don't have a problem, but for many, the concept of standing up and saying, here's what I'm going through, that we all know this. I've said it 1,000 times. The number one fear of every person on the planet is public speaking. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but it is a fact. Doesn't matter what country you go to, doesn't matter what culture you're in, people don't like getting up in front of other people and speaking. It causes your heart rate to race. It causes your palms to sweat, right? All of these bad things that are associated with public speaking, and most people hate it. It's their biggest fear, which is crazy, right? Because the second biggest fear is death. Gives you a really good idea of how bad most people do not want to have to speak in front of other people. The beautiful thing about the boat is you can come and speak this way, and we're not looking at you. Some of you have stepped up to the plate and done one-on-one interviews. The nice thing about those is that if we do it right, it really is just you and me talking. You know, and for a lot of people that have done these interviews, you can sort of forget the fact that this is going to get broadcast out. And it's just, you know, you and me. You know, you're just talking to Tommy. It's not like you're talking to the world. And it has worked very well for a lot of people. It's, but without the connection and without the interaction of other people, you're going to end up a statistic like the ones that I read you. That's sad, but it is absolutely true. Hey, Kathy, it's good to see you. Kathy is our friend from the islands. Glad that you're here, Kathy. The more that I started to dive into this subject of suffering, and again, what a crappy subject to speak on, right? I mean, this is not fun. Mine is public speaking. I used to fake sick when there was a presentation at school. I hated being in front of the class. You're not alone, Jesse. You're not alone. Most people really can't stand that. I hate it because I was forced to public speak as a child. Separately forced to be a child model too. Hated it all. Oh my goodness, that sounds awful. It really does. It sounds awful. You know, I think I may have told this story before, but I went into a rehabilitation program in prison. And it was a program that's very difficult to get into, actually. But when you got there, their entire concept was based on something called L.S.D. And if you're old enough, you might remember L.S.D. The guy that, it basically, the idea is it breaks you down. It breaks you down and tears you apart so that they can then build you back up. Awful concept. Just a terrible concept. But the easiest way to do that, and especially in that kind of a setting, was to force all of these people to get up. And there was 280 people in the group. And every single morning we would meet for an hour. And one person a day had to get up and do a 15-minute presentation on one of like 3 subject matters. And I watched a guy get up one day. And his assignment was one word. He just had to talk about one word and what that word meant to him. And he got up, and the word was integrity. But he got up, and you've never seen anything like it. It was the most miserable thing I've ever seen. He had sweat pouring off of his face. You could literally watch drips of sweat coming off him. And I thought, how in hell is this helping this person get sober? And pardon my French, but I got pissed like I can't explain. Like it was getting to me. And after about 4 minutes of this, where he was able to get about 5 words out, and he was shuffling from one foot to the other, I got up, I walked up next to him. I said, "Hey, I got this. Have a seat." He said, "What?" I said, "I got it. Have a seat." Look, I may not be the best public speaker in the world, but I sure as hell don't have any problem with it. It doesn't, my pulse doesn't race. This is something I've done a lot of. So he sat down and I did 15 minutes on what integrity meant. And the woman that ran the program went postal. I mean postal. And called me to her office, screamed at me up one side, down the other. And then she said, it was right around Christmas time. And she said to me, I want you to sing a Christmas song tomorrow in front of the entire group. Once again, I don't care. I was a theater major when I went to college the first time. I don't care. I've done musicals, whatever. So I was like, all right. So I got up and sang the song that she wanted me to do, which was Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow. And when I was done, I was probably the only person that ever got up that wasn't uncomfortable by it. And when I got to the end of it and people started to clap, not because the singing was good, but because they realized I was getting over on her, that, this wasn't bothering me. And I think that they loved that. And when I got to the end, I went, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, I wrote a remix and I sang an entire another song that I had written the night before to the same music. And it was all about drugs and rehabilitation and things. And basically, she continued to try to, the following day, no joke, she had me wearing a hula skirt with a hula hoop. And I had to get up and and it just continued. And I remember going into her office one day and saying, I'm not the guy. This is not, you're never going to get to something that's going to make me really uncomfortable. And the funny thing is, people, that after about 6 other attempts of this woman trying to sort of break me down, the federal government came in. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning, and they fired all of these people. They came in, locked the filing cabinet doors, right? Escorted all of them off the premises. It turns out that everything they were doing was illegal. Like, they were doing all of these just insane things that there's no legality. I mean, you can't do what she was doing to people. L.S.D is great if you're on the street, but to force inmates to do it was against the law. And but the battle back and forth between me and this woman was hysterical. It really was. It was kind of funny. And I know I just squirreled off of subject, but it does hammer home why we're able to do what we do here. People come to the lifeboat and they share things that if they had to stand up on camera and talk about. I mean, you've heard people talk about being molested. You've heard people talk about being abused as a child, or people who admitted just some horrendous things that they've done. Most people, and not everybody, but most people would never be in a position to do that if they were forced to actually talk about it, if they were forced to articulate it. And this is no joke. This is one of the few things that Mark and I will take credit for, because when the two of us met, it was already the Tommy Scoville show, and when the two of us met, both of us were on the same page. Like, this was the one thing I tell you all the time about the things that happened on the lifeboat that I didn't see coming, right? This I did see coming. I really did see this. Like, this was something that made perfect sense to me. Giving people the opportunity to share what's going on in their life without anybody having to look at them was really a bonus. Now, if you listen to that cat in the very beginning, you shouldn't share anything with me because I'm a convicted bank robber. People, you're not sharing things with me. You're sharing things with a group of people, all of whom are in the same boat. Do you understand? Please tell me that you do. I literally have been accused of running a cult where I'm trying to get all of this information from you so I can blackmail you. People, I've never asked anybody to tell me anything in private. It doesn't do any good to tell me anything in private. To come here and talk about your problems with the group. And the really funny thing is that the people who come and pick on us about that are the people who are going to mock you for the things that you do say in public. They're the only time that we don't have harmony and things going smooth is when those jackwagons, do what they do. But there really is a lot to be said for coming here and sharing. Oh, I'm 63. The child model was not like nowadays with makeup and skimpy clothes. It was from Montgomery Ward's. Thought I should clear that up. You know what? Regardless, you were asked to perform. You know what I mean? And yeah, I feel a little better not having that John Benet Ramsey image in my head. But nevertheless, when someone takes a child and sort of says, "Okay, now go and do this," and I've struggled with that. I always have found that to be something that is just, I don't know. I find it distasteful. If it's something that you're into and you love. There are kids that very much want to be little performers from a very young age, but there are people who are pushed into it, and that's never been a good idea. Thank you, Miss Hermit Hill, Kentucky. That means a lot to me. It really does. Yeah, Raven. When forced to perform, that's not a good thing. It really is not a good thing. But the good news is that you're about as balanced as most people on the boat. So it does seem like that you came through it all right. But yeah, if you were forced to get up and do any kind of, hey, did I just see? Well, let me see there. Peppers in Kentucky living. Good to see you. Glad that you're here. I really am. That's awesome. Yeah, but again, when I talk about connection, we don't have to see you. We don't. Connection, as it relates to addiction and to suffering and all of those things, it's taking the issues in your life that you're struggling with and putting sunlight on them. Right? The other option is that we take these things and we pull it in and we hold it inside. And whenever anything is pulled in and it's held in the dark, it festers, right? It creates ants, automatic negative thoughts, and they will crawl all over your brain and drive you crazy. Is there a watch by the microphone? You know what? Actually, it's nowhere near the microphone. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That is a very loud pocket watch I was working on. I can't believe the microphone was picking that up. Are we good? I got a 5x5 if you're not hearing a watch ticking these days. Jesse, sorry about that. It's gone, yeah? It is a good microphone. We owe this to Stefano. That would be Lady Fiona Crispin's son. Way back when I was going through the microphone stage. If you guys have been on the boat a long time, you remember I was buying one after the other, and none of them ever worked right. Mike Hepner says, it was sweet music to my ears. That was a Zenith. Mike, that's what that was. That was a 1905 Zenith pocket watch. You could hear the pallet stones. Click, click, click. I love that sound too. I really do. But I can't believe it was picking that up. It's one heck of a microphone. It's a pretty loud watch too, but that's a heck of a microphone. If you're still hearing it, it's the watch that I'm wearing, and there's not much I can do about that. I'm not taking that off. But again, when we talk about connection and connectivity, it doesn't need to be face-to-face. It doesn't need to be any of that, but it needs to not allow the issues in your life to fester. If you allow the things that are going on in your life to remain in the dark, then really bad things are going to happen. Seven Sun says, was thinking we were watching 60 Minutes. Hold on. That's actually really funny, Seven Sun. I'm Mike Wallace. It really is the 60 Minutes. That's great. That really is funny. Seven Sun, you make me laugh on a pretty regular basis. That's good stuff. You're good. It wasn't distracting. You know what? It's I don't need any help with anything distracting with anybody listening to me. I promise you, that's the last thing we need. You're right. 60 Minutes. It really was. That's definitely the sound. Although I have a really horrendous cheap pocket watch. It was one of the $1 pocket watches. I bought it because it was in incredible shape. Years ago, they sold these watches for $1, and there are no stones in there. There's no jewels. It's just a very cheap movement. But they made it back in the day so that people could carry pocket watches, and the dials were made of paper. Very, very inexpensive. But the sound that one makes is literally the perfect 60 Minutes. It's that click, 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 click. It's a kind of an awful sound, actually, but like listening to a kitty purr. I'm surprised that the cat's not making a little bit more noise. She's good and asleep this evening. So, people, today, and this is kind of one of those things that is difficult to speak about, but it probably needs to we need to address it. There have been situations, people. It happens often that these people, the people on the boat spend a lot of time. We talked about this yesterday. There are people on the boat who spend a great deal of time unloading. And it is what we are supposed to do. Make no mistake. And it's what I'm talking about. It's what the whole subject matter today has been. If you're going through something, you come to a group setting, you let people know what's going on, you shine light on the issue. The trap that we need to be very careful of is that it doesn't become one of those things where you have people trying to one-up one another. Honestly, there is a phenomenon that is fairly recent. The first time the term was used in that I could document was actually in 2006. But the term is Munchausen's by internet. If you've ever heard of Munchausen syndrome, it's people who crave attention so much that they will injure themselves so that they can have a doctor, nurses, all of those people go, oh, you know what, poor you, and they work on those people, and then all of their friends say to them, oh, you were in the hospital? Oh, I feel so bad for you, this or that. And what's probably more famous is something called Munchausen's by proxy, and movies and things have been made about this where parents literally will injure their kids so that they can have the attention of and the sympathy of people. It's a mental illness. It's a legitimate mental illness. However, the internet has created this phenomenon that they call Munchausen's by internet, and it's people that as opposed to just coming and saying, okay, well, here's what's going on, and I need to get this out so that I can get a little perspective so that I can move on. It is every 5 minutes there is a new crisis, and people begin to try to out-crisis one another. I recently got diagnosed with, with this ailment, and this is what's going on. Well, that's nothing. I recently had, well, that's nothing. And in the last 24 hours, I had one individual who said to me, I'm stepping away from social media because of this phenomenon. Because every time I try to plug into this, and I'm not necessarily just talking about the boat, but this is 3 or 4 chat rooms that this individual was plugging into. He said every time that they show up in one of these chat rooms, what ends up happening is everybody starts, sort of getting into this is what's going on in my life mode. Remember the movie Baron Munchausen with Monty Python? I do. The Adventures of Baron von Munchausen. Great movie. Had a nose about this big. That one? Yeah. And then today I had a individual from the boat who said, I'm stepping off the boat and I won't be back. And people, anytime that happens, it's painful. Whatever the reason, we don't like, I don't like seeing people leave the boat. I really don't. It's something that leaves a mark every time it happens. And we've had, the number of reasons that there have been for leaving the group are as numerous as the number of people who have left. But this particular one was kind of unusual. This person basically said, I kind of feel like I'm cured. Take it easy. Which is kind of amazing. On the one hand, very, very happy that this individual feels cured. I don't really think that you can cure anybody from what we all go through. But yeah, it's not usually a cure kind of a situation. It's sort of one of those lifelong, it's not a sprint, it's not a marathon, it's a life. But this individual feels cured and has decided that they are going to move on. Yeah, you know what, Arizona Raven? That is sad. It's one of those things that that kind of messed me up. It really did. And as I said, and this is where really heavily, this is where Mark Wages comes in, because he touched on this last night. If you're going through a really bad time in your life, there's a really good chance I know about it, right? There's a really good chance Mark knows about it. If not one of us, both of us. But Daniels got cured. Don't know the reference. But it's one of those. I'm sorry, I scrolled off in a direction and no idea where I was going. No, I was talking about somebody leaving the boat. Mark and I lean on one another heavily, because very oftentimes I'm so blessed that I've been able to leave behind everything that didn't serve me. No more in my life. You know what, Mike? That's the goal of everybody. It really is. That's the mission of the boat. That's the goal of each and every person here. And you are blessed. Make no mistake, you are blessed. I feel the exact same way. I really do. About 6.5 years ago, I was able to take all of the things that were really dragging me down and just toss them. And it's been, I'd love to tell you it's been an easy road. It hasn't. It's been it's been a journey. But every day that I'm not doing the things that I used to do is such a blessing. And it's kind of how I was going to finish this talk, so it kind of dovetails in. But the thought I was finishing, though, was that, you know what, when you guys are hurting, you reach out to us. And I'm not complaining. That's what you're supposed to do. I ask all of you, if you're in a bad place, and there's not somebody there that's going to listen and it's going to help, reach out to us. It's the reason that my contact information is in the Dropbox. I make it easy to get a hold of me, because this is pretty much my mission in life, right? So, but there have been times where there's 30 of you that are all going through something at the same time, and trying to sort of reach out and help all of those people can, kind of drags you down. Oh, yeah. No, because it often means that you have to say goodbye to things or people that you actually care for. Mike, no question. No question. And I would say it always means that you're going to have to say goodbye to some people and some things that you cared about. I did. I absolutely did. There are people, or if I didn't say goodbye to them completely, I sure as hell don't have the relationship that I had with them at all. I have one of my best friends. There's a guy that I've talked about often on this channel. It's not Jack, but that I've talked about often. He started drinking again about 3 or 4 years ago, and the sad thing is that I can't get him on the phone when I want to talk to him. The only time that I can get him, or the only time we speak, is when he calls me, and when he does, he's in the bag. You know what I mean? He's he's 2 or 3 sheets to the wind, and he slurs viciously. It's to the point where I can't understand what he says. And he's not a happy drunk. He's an angry drunk. And, he'll call to rail on whatever political, problem that's going on in the world that he feels the need to weigh in on. And it's horrible. Growing up, it was basically me and 2 friends, and we were, to say we were thick as thieves is, there's really no other way to put it. Hold on one moment. Just need some prayers right now, dealing with a situation that I have no idea what to do with that. Will affect my career and where I live. Caleb, we would be more than happy to keep you in our thoughts and prayers, and I will make a point to remind people of that. On the next few live feeds so that everyone does that. If you feel like you need to talk, my email address is captaintommyscoville@gmail.com. Captain TommyScoville@gmail.com. It's in the Dropbox. You can reach out to me or to Mark. It's kind of what we do. But yeah, there were three of us that were just thick as thieves. We were the absolute best of friends. And to watch what has happened, two of them are deep in the life. I mean, deep in the life. And it's, God bless you too. It's really difficult to watch, but I've had to turn my back. I mean, I take his phone calls, but there was a time in my life where we got together 4 or 5 times a year. It's just not something that, it threatens my serenity. Honestly, I'm to the point now where not much threatens my sobriety, but when my serenity is threatened, I start that really long relapse process where I start, sliding in the wrong direction. And for me, I'm either doing what I'm doing right here, right now, or, moving forward, or I'm going in the opposite direction. I really am. And, yeah, so you're right, Mike. You're absolutely right. And it's tough. But you know what? For a lot of us, it's so much better than the alternative. The person that I was just a reprehensible person. There was not much about who I was that was a very good person. And on the bright side, boy, it makes collecting timepieces a lot easier when you're sober. None of them end up in pawn shops. These days, when I go into pawn shops, I'm seeing what's for sale. I'm not trying to sell anything, which is nice. People, the takeaway, and this live feed tonight is going to end a little bit early, and the reason it is, hold on one second. There's winning and there's losing, and in life both will happen. What is never acceptable is quitting. Well played, Charlie Mullins. Well played. I love that. I really do. Giving up. There's no room whatsoever for giving up. I will be ending this a little early tonight, and the reason is I'm going to make sure that I'm there for my partner. This has been a very, very tough night for him, and for those of you who know what's going on, they just laid his best friend's boy just got laid to rest, and it's. He was old enough where he wasn't just like a nephew to Mark. He was like a best friend and a nephew. And it's just it's a tough situation. And, we lean on each other with everything that goes on here. And a lot of, there's a lot of pain and a lot of struggle that's associated with the lifeboat and with our mission. And I just want to make sure that I'm going to be there for Mark tonight. So I'm going to wrap this up about 5 minutes early because it's going to be right around the time that I told him he could reach out. So, but you know what? To all of the people that were new here tonight, I want to say thank you very much for being here. Tell you what, Mr. Hepner, I promise you, if it isn't this evening, it might be this evening. If not, it will be tomorrow. I'd like to show you some pictures of some timepieces. Little club GG Le Coup, right? My collection is growing by the day. It's one of the beautiful things about not spending money on bad stuff. You can go out and hunt down timepieces. Got a Ulysse Nardin. I got a couple of really cool things to show you. People, the opposite of addiction is connection. The opposite of addiction is connection. It's not sobriety, right? You can stop doing drugs, and all that means is that you're clean. Doesn't mean you're sober. Sober has an awful lot to do. Ouch. Best wishes to Mark, yeah. And the families of the fallen. Thank you. Make it tomorrow, mate. It's 4 p.m, and I got to get up in 3 hours. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, Mike. Absolutely. I will. It'll be in your inbox. So look forward to tomorrow at some point. Setting goals is the first step to turning the invisible into the visible. Nice. You know what, Seventh Son? Honestly, I thought that might have been Jacob Forrester when I first read it. Well played. We stopped all friends after marriage that did illegal stuff. I gave that info to 2 of my child drug addicts leave this neighborhood. Good. Run them out. Run them out. For real, people. This is life or death. It really is. I'm not being dramatic. This is life or death stuff. You know, just in our country, we're going to lose 300 people between now and the next time we get together. 120 houses are going to empty of the people that live there between now and tomorrow at this time. This is really serious stuff. So please do everything within your power to connect. Right? If you're going through something, come here and talk about it. If you're feeling like the world is weighing you down, well, then tell us. Come here and talk to people. If it isn't here, go to talk to somebody. But don't let this stuff stay in the shadows and in the dark. Because when you do, it festers. And when things fester, nothing good happens. You understand? Nothing good happens. So, between now and tomorrow night at this time, when we all get back together, you have but one assignment. You know what that assignment is? I want you to reach out and I want you to try to save somebody. All right? I am Captain Tommy Scoville. This here was the lifeboat. Thank you all. You know I love you. See you tomorrow night. Bye-bye. And as always, cat in a basket. Good night, everybody. All right, squirrel. Let's get out of here.